VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And welcome to Crosstalk here on the VCY America Network. My name is Jim Schneider. We thank you for joining us, and I think you'll find today's program to be very, very informative, and perhaps we'll give you a glimpse as to what is taking place in our society today as it relates to a term we're hearing more and more called cyber terrorism. Matter of fact, it is a very real concern. Wednesday, June 13th, 2012, the United States Defense Secretary Leon Panetta testified during a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense, warning that America faces the potential for another Pearl Harbor, launched by enemies who have the capability to wield a cyber attack that would, quote, paralyze this country. I'm going to let you hear this clip. It's only 58 seconds long, but he's being questioned. This is the Secretary of Defense being questioned by U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. Let's hear what he had to say.
You said something that just kind of went over everybody's head, I think, that there's a Pearl Harbor in the making here. You're talking about shutting down financial systems, releasing chemicals from chemical plants, releasing water from dams, shutting down power systems that could affect the very survival of the nation. What's the likelihood in the next 5 years that one of these major events will occur?
Well, all I can tell you...
Is it a high probability or a low probability?
All I can tell you is that technologically the capability to paralyze this country is there now.
Is there a growing will to use that capability by our enemies?
I think the more this technology develops, the more the will to potentially use it is going to take place.
Would you say there is a high probability that the capability and the will...
I think there's a high risk.
Okay.
Cyber terrorism, our very real concern. With us today on Crosstalk, Ron Rhodes, president of Reasoning from the Scriptures Ministries. He is author of over 60 books. He regularly speaks at conferences and in the national media. He's with us today discussing his book, Cyber Meltdown, Bible Prophecy and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism. Ron, thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
Well, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Let me get your reaction to what you heard from the Secretary of Defense, what he had to say. It sounds like this issue of cyber terrorism is a pretty real thing.
Well, it is a real thing, and I think a lot of people are kind of like the ostrich with the head in the sand. You know, they're unaware of what's really taking place in the world, and I think that we tend to have this sense of invulnerability in our country. You know, we're the United States. Nobody can successfully attack us. Mm-hmm. But with cyber warfare, people from any part of the world, including the extremist Muslim nations, can easily launch a cyber attack that can virtually cripple our nation.
Describe that for us, because, I mean, we think, well, how can we be hurt? I mean, we're not talking bullets, we're not talking bombs. What is a cyber attack you talk about?
Well, the kinds of things that would happen, for example, would be that the Department of Defense networks go down, the Pentagon computers collapse, the entire Internet goes down into meltdown. The aviation computers go down so that all the planes and jets and helicopters out there are flying blind. All the green lights and red lights at traffic places, they all go out, so there's cars crashing into each other. Chemical plants malfunction, releasing lethal clouds of chlorine gas into the air. Major gas pipelines explode. Subway trains crash. Freight trains derail. Blackouts in all of the major cities, and all of that I just described can take place within a 15-minute period.
Ron, we heard those same kind of things pertaining to Y2K here just a dozen years back, and people listening said, you know, we heard those warnings back then. It didn't happen then. What makes you think that could happen now?
Well, the reason I say it can happen now is that, number one, it's already happening. In fact, you may be aware of some of the conflicts going on in different parts of the world. For example, the Russia-Estonia conflict. This kind of warfare is already taking place. And what happens typically is that a cyber attack is launched against a country before what's called a kinetic attack. And the kinetic attack is where you send in the tanks and the bazookas and the guns. And so basically what happens is that a country becomes paralyzed initially by a cyber attack, and then a physical attack follows. Now, I want you to understand something real clearly here. Our own government, our present government, takes this so seriously that our government has stated that if somebody launches a successful cyber attack against the United States, all options are on the table, including responding with physical force, bazookas, tanks, grenades, U.S. warships, helicopters, all of that. And so that's meant to be a deterrent to some of these countries out there who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars in beefing up their warfare in terms of launching a cyber attack and defending themselves against a cyber attack.
Is it true that the CIA holds cyber war exercises?
Well, yes, and wasn't that surprising? That kind of shows you how seriously our government's taking it. There are several exercises that are held, and among those would be Cyber Shockwave and Cyber Storm. And basically, those are put together in order to go through a mock cyber attack. And they're not just putting anybody in different positions during these mock attacks. Rather, they're gathering our best intelligence officials and military officials and people involved with the Department of Defense. And the goal is to find out how our country would respond in the event of a successful cyber attack. And what those mock cyber attacks reveal is that we are unprepared as a nation. And one of the problems, Jim, is that decisions need to be made instantly. You see, what happens in the first 10 seconds, first 15 seconds or so forth, what happens in that very short time is all critical. And we're just not set up for that.
Yeah, I want you to elaborate on this further, and you kind of alluded to this early in the interview. You kind of saying, hey, we're the United States. You know, we have technical superiority, yet in your book, Cyber Meltdown, you say you might be surprised to learn that the United States is highly vulnerable to severe injury from cyber weapons. Elaborate. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the reasons I say that is that the United States has been considered a wealthy nation. Now, of course, recently we've had our economic problems. But because of the wealth in this country, we are more technologically advanced than anybody else. And for that reason, we use the Internet and networking and various kinds of technology more than anybody else. And because we use more technology than anybody else, we're more vulnerable to having that technology attacked. And in fact, those attacks are already happening. In fact, one of the things I do in my book is just talk about some examples of how the United States is presently being attacked. Did you know that the number of security events each month related to the United States Senate is now 1.8 billion?
No.
That's not million, that's billion. There are 13.9 million computer attacks launched each day against the Senate Security Operations Center. And also, we've got massive amounts of data being stolen from Pentagon computers and Department of Defense computers. For example, virtually terabytes of data, that's enough information to fill the Library of Congress, has been stolen by the Internet, by cyberspace, on our new F-35 jet fighter that is supposed to protect us for the coming decades. And so foreign governments are actually penetrating our own high-security networks.
There's another area, and you warn about this in your book, and here's what you say, quote, some Islamic terrorists consider cyberspace a means of fulfilling jihad. Elaborate on that for us, if you would.
Well, there's a real easy factor that ties into all of this, and that easy factor is that it doesn't take any money at all to finance a cyber attack. For as little as $500, a hacker could put together a cyber attack that could do injury to a nation. You know, the hacker would know what he was doing in terms of being, trained by computers and so forth. But the fact is that when you spend millions and even hundreds of millions of dollars in building a large team of hackers, that's when it becomes dangerous. And so in some of the extremist Muslim countries today, they're talking about cyber jihad. You see, it used to be that a terrorist would have to actually get inside our country to engage in jihad against our country. That's no longer the case. Today, as a result of cyber technology, cyber jihadists, if I might use that term, can actually launch an attack against the United States, the Great Satan, as they call it, as well as Israel, as well as Britain, as well as a number of other countries simultaneously. And that's one of the reasons why our own country has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in beefing up cyber defenses. In fact, they've already determined that one of the things our government will do will be to virtually turn off the Internet and then restart it. There are actually people that own keys, a team of people that has to come together and use these various keys to restart the Internet. Now, just go figure that. Think about the implications of that for a minute.
Very staggering information. Ron Rhodes is with us. He's author of Cyber Meltdown, president of Reasoning from the Scriptures Ministries, and talking about this whole issue of cyber terrorism, cyber meltdown. And, folks, the ramifications of this are huge. We've got so much to discuss, but let me ask you this, Ron, in that as we read through Bible prophecy, we really don't see the United States as being a major player there. Could that be related to this matter of cyber terrorism?
Well, it very well could be. In fact, I've talked about this issue in a number of my books on biblical prophecy. It does seem that the United States plays no role in prophecy. In fact, the center of power seems to switch over to the United States of Europe, or a revived Roman Empire in the end times. And in fact, the economy will be centralized over in the United States of Europe one day, as headed by the Antichrist and the false prophet. And so what is it that would lead the United States to not be a major player in Bible prophecy? I do raise the question in my book that cyber terrorism could play a role in bringing this country to its knees. And because the United States has more technology than anybody else, we are more vulnerable than anybody else. And when you combine the possibility of cyber terrorism with other kinds of technologies, including nuclear weaponry and electromagnetic pulse weapons and so forth, the United States is much more vulnerable than the average American citizen is aware of. And, Jim, I got to tell you, I'm not a sensationalist. I am not an alarmist. All of the information that we have shared is information that comes from some of the top experts in our country who are involved in security, defense, the Navy, the Army, the Marines. All of this information is absolutely reliable, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book.
Ron Rhodes is our guest here today. We're just seconds away from a break, and on the other side, we're going to be taking a look going from this cyber terrorism and the impact this is upon us as a nation. We're going to look more at us as individuals and personal privacy issues coming under attack as well. But folks, as Ron has talked about this, I'm just looking at headlines of recent stories. Here's one from WND: fake Chinese electronics threaten U.S. defense. Here's another one from the Business and Financial News: nations must talk to halt cyber terrorism. Here's another one: the NSA, National Security Administration, is building the country's biggest spy center. Watch what you say. Here's another one: U.S. officials ignored China cyber threat. On and on and on these stories go. And folks, it's really important that we perk up our ears and listen and become informed on this vital issue. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to personalize this. What about personal privacy in the Internet and all these electronic communications? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and creation debater with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, any new problems with the Big Bang Theory?
Chris, there's always a lot of new problems with the Big Bang. The Big Bang Theory, I think, is about to fizzle. Many scientific studies show that the evidence just does not support the theory. Soon the Big Bang will fall altogether, I predict. One of the new discoveries was that the microwave background radiation in space has been shown to fluctuate. According to the Big Bang Theory, that fluctuation should be random. But now we see that it has a definite non-random deviation. But if it's not random, that puts the Big Bang Theory into the realm of complete mystery. But it's not a mystery to creationists who believe that the universe was created on purpose by the God of the Bible, and He did so back in Genesis.
To find out more about creation science, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
from Reasoning from the Scriptures Ministries. We have Ron Rhodes with us, the president, and he has authored many books, including the new book we're talking about today. It came out in 2011, but the information is so impactful for us today as we are really being hit with this. This matter is called Cyber Meltdown, subtitled Bible Prophecy and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism. It is a packed full book, and I can see by the time that's going by, we're just scratching the surface on this issue. The book is about 275 pages long. We're offering it through Crosstalk today. Our way of saying thank you for your support of $17 or more to support the program. You may request your copy of Cyber Meltdown, Bible Prophecy and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism by visiting our website, vcyamerica.org. You'll find it right there, and you can click on it and request the book, vcyamerica.org, or by calling our switchboard at 1-800-729-9829 and request the book, Cyber Meltdown. Again, our way of saying thank you for your support of $17 or more. You can call 1-800-729-9829. Well, Ron, we're hearing more and more on this whole aspect of cyber terrorism, but we're also hearing more and more concerns over personal privacy issues, whether it be Facebook, internet search engines, email, iPhones, and other technology. Is it possible in this day and age to have any sense of personal privacy as we utilize these tools?
Well, I tell you what, your privacy is vanishing before our eyes. Let me just give you a couple examples. If you work in a major city in the United States today, did you know that your face is recorded on camera about 60 times a day? If you live in London, your face is recorded on camera about 400 times a day. That's over 3,000 times each week. That's what I call a loss of privacy. Did you know that whenever you use your credit card, that information is stored about the kind of products that you buy? There are more and more gizmos today that use these RDIF chips. These are chips that can be implanted in phone devices and cards, smart cards, and so forth. And these devices can track wherever you are. In fact, in some companies today, they make you wear a little badge, and inside that badge is a special chip that lets the boss know exactly where you are at any part of the day. And on it goes. We've got surveillance cameras that are tied into the Internet that circle the globe. Even with Google Earth, you can see your house pretty clearly, but with the high technology of our military, they can literally read over your shoulder as you're looking at a magazine. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when you're using the Internet, your privacy may well be violated. And I'm talking about, for example, what's called a keyboard logger, which is a special software package that can be deviously downloaded to your computer without you knowing it, and it watches all your keystrokes, including when you sign on to your bank account or your credit card company. And how does it get there? Well, a lot of people today, if I just might point out the ways that they do this, they actually will attach these to pornography. And, pornography is very popular in this country today. And sometimes when people visit these sites, they'll click on a picture that they shouldn't be clicking on, and without them even knowing it, that is downloading in the background a keyboard logger that spies on you.
Wow.
Now, if that's not a good reason to avoid pornography, I don't know what is. But it gets even worse. Sometimes you might get an email from apparently one of your friends. It's got your friend's name right there, and it says, "Hey, John, I just got this great article that I thought that you might like." And then the signature is from one of your friends, and so you click on it. And when you click on it, indeed an article does come up that's interesting, but also secretly in the background, that software is downloaded into your computer where somebody's going to spy on your credit cards. And how do they get your name? How do they get your friend's name? Well, it's real easy. They just go to your Facebook account, and they pick up some of your friends' names. And then they, through a couple of manipulations, they send you an email that appears to be from your friend. And so people trust it when it appears to be from your friend.
Does antivirus software keep us safe?
I used to think so, and I used to spend an awful lot of money on that kind of software, and I still use antivirus software. But do you know what the experts tell us? The experts tell us that maybe, if we're lucky, antivirus software might recognize 30% of the viruses that are out there. 30%. Now, why do I say that? Well, here's the problem. Today, in the modern world about one new form of evil software known as malware enters into the Internet every 2.2 seconds. That's 27 a minute. That's over 1,600 viruses per hour. That's over 39,000 viruses per day. Do you think that the major software companies, the antivirus companies, have the personnel to deal with 39,000 viruses a day? No way. And so, we need to use that software to be sure, but you also got to use a lot of common sense. And I tell you the best way to have common sense in this book.
Ron, many people think, and we talk about, some of these online technologies, but it goes beyond that. When we use a photocopier, many people think that when they use a photocopier, once the print come out, that's it. Nothing else to be concerned about. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, a lot of the photocopiers today are actually attached to the Internet. And a lot of people don't recognize that, but this can be used as a cyber weapon. People can spy, for example, on the kinds of things that are being photocopied, and, of course, this has to do with corporate espionage. There might be one company that's trying to steal the corporate secrets of another company and use this kind of technology. Or it could be that you want to get even with somebody at a particular company. And through the Internet, you can actually send an energy charge into that photocopier with the goal of causing a fire. And, I hate to say it, but, you start to get a little bit paranoid the more you research this thing. And I don't want people to get paranoid, but my point is this, Jim, the more we are aware of the kind of things that can happen, the more wisdom we can show in dealing with this technology. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to communicate wisdom and awareness as opposed to communicating sensationalism and being alarmist and being paranoid, because I don't want anybody to be paranoid. I just want people to be wise about it.
Many are using their computers or their phone apps for the paying of bills, banking transactions, which you pointed out. Do you see us approaching a cashless society, and how does this relate to end times Bible prophecy?
Well, I think that we are headed toward a cashless society, and in fact, we're just about there. I talk about this in the book, and the reality is that we're using far less cash today than we used to. In fact, the reality is that today we're using about 70% less cash than we did a decade or two ago. And even checks today are often read by check scanners that instantly transfer money out of your account. Mm-hmm. Your paycheck is typically deposited automatically in your account today. If you're driving down a tollway, money automatically is taken out of your account. And get this, the president of the Visa Card Corporation says that it's entirely possible that within the next 5 years or so, you could be charged a surcharge if you try to use cash at a establishment. And wow. So, yes, we're headed towards a cashless society. In fact, we're already there in many different ways. And I believe that this makes it very possible for the Antichrist to take control of the world economy, like Revelation 13 talks about.
So, you believe it's plausible that cyber technology is going to be utilized by the Antichrist? Expand on that.
Well, I think that that's entirely possible. See, the fact is that if we were a cash-based society during the future tribulation period, people could still buy and sell. But Scripture says that people are going to have to take the mark of the beast, and without the mark of the beast, you cannot buy or sell. Well, the only way that could really be enforced would be if there was no longer cash. The only way that could really be enforced was if everything was electronic. And, the fact is that everybody could be given an account number. Every selling establishment could have an account number. And all of that could be tied into the supercomputers that now exist today, tracking people who have received the mark and who have not received the mark of the beast. And it becomes a very easy thing for the world economy to be controlled. And, yes, the technology today has made possible for the first time in human history the fulfillment of the control of the economy as outlined in Revelation 13. So that kind of hints to me that that's just, one more among many signs that we are living in the season of the Lord's return.
So you see a connection between cyber technologies and even a coming global government?
Well, yes. In fact, I talk about that in the book. I believe that we are going to have a one-world government and a one-world economy, and I don't think that could take place without the kinds of technologies that we have in place today. Even today, everything is interconnected. When you look at the stock markets, for example, what takes place in one country affects what takes place in another country. If the Japanese or the Chinese have a bad day at the stock market, that affects us.
Yeah.
Now, what that means, practically speaking, is that there are people all over the world today who are crying out for somebody to take control. Somebody to take control on a global basis, who will make global decisions so that we can do away with some of these problems that are affiliated with nation states. And I hate to say it, Jim, but even our own government today has made quite a number of decisions that are a lot more in keeping with a globalist agenda than something that protects the national interests of the United States. So, we're already taking steps toward that in our world today, and it's only going to become more intense in the years to come. But I can tell you this, a global government would be impossible without the technology that is in place today. Yeah. And so I repeat that the state of affairs that you read about in Revelation 13 is now, for the first time in human history, made possible that by the technology that now exists.
Ron, this all sounds quite fatalistic. Is there any hope?
Well, yes. In fact, one of the things that I point out in the book is that we should never look at our world and become despairing or become without hope. And you know why? I say it because God is in control. The book of Revelation was written to people under severe persecution by the Romans. And the book of Revelation was given to Christians to be an encouragement to them. And as my old friend Walter Martin used to put it, I read the last chapter in the book, and we win. See, the book of Revelation and all Bible prophecy gives us hope. So we don't have to worry or despair. God is in control. And it's interesting to me that very often when you read about biblical prophecy, there are admonitions not only to live righteously and in purity, but also to trust in God and not worry.
Amen.
And so that's the good news.
Ron Rhodes is our guest here today on Crosstalk. Again, his book, Cyber Meltdown, Bible Prophecy and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism, being made available through Crosstalk. It is our way of saying thank you for your support of $17 or more. We literally are scratching the surface on the issue. The book has much information here to keep you informed on this vital issue. What do computer viruses do, and how do they spread? How are terrorists and opposing nations using cyberspace as a weapon? Is America vulnerable to cyber terrorism? What current events indicate that we may be living in the last days? What new technologies seem to be paving the way for the fulfillment of end-time prophecies in the Bible? Again, it's available, our way of saying thank you for your support of $17 or more to Crosstalk. You can obtain it online at vcyamerica.org. Or by calling our switchboard at 800-729-9829. I'd like to open the phone lines, folks, for your questions, your comments of our guest today. Our number to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829. 1-800-733-9829. We will be back in just 1 minute to take your questions and to field some of the comments that you have here today on Crosstalk on this topic of cyber meltdown. And certainly the concern not only for cyber terrorism, but the matters pertaining to personal privacy related as well. GPS and all related topics. We'll be back in 1 minute. This is Crosstalk on the VCY America Network.
When it comes to the topic of origins, why shouldn't Christians accept millions of years? Couldn't God have used evolution? What about the gap theory? Could God really have created everything in 6 days? Cain's wife, who was she? Was there really a Noah's Ark and flood? Why does God's creation include death and suffering? Over 24 diverse questions are addressed in the New Answers book, Volume 1. As a matter of fact, Ken Ham, the editor of this book, said that next to the Bible, this New Answers book, Volume 1, is the most important book for people to read and understand on the topic of creation and origins. Leading apologists answer these questions biblically and logically in a simple-to-read format, including charts and diagrams. Copies of the New Answers book, Volume 1, are available from VCY for a donation of $18 or more by calling 1-800-729-9829. That's toll-free. 1-800-729-9829.
we've just scratched the surface on so many issues. Spy chips, the RFID chips, tracking consumer products, tracking medicine, releasing medicine in you. I mean, on and on and on the list goes here. And the matter is, a lot of things are covered here in the book, Cyber Meltdown, Bible Prophecy, and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism. Rhodes is our guest today on Crosstalk. And we're going to take your phone calls here, 800-733-9829. And let's begin with Robert, who is calling in from Racine, Wisconsin. Robert, you're on the air.
Yes, hi. The book, is it a good precursor to someone, even I'm 40-something years, but I'm not very good at computers, and that I get blocked on the Internet when I try and access VCY at the library or, some of the connecting links. And do viruses or agendas have to do with things like that, or is it just my novice state of being?
Well, if you're real careful in the kinds of websites you visit, you're going to be safe. For example, when you go to VCY America, you're perfectly safe in visiting that website. Mm-hmm. There are other websites, however, that you may not know anything about. You might do a search on Google and find some store that's offering a particular product, but you've never heard of it before. You want to be careful about those kind of things, because one of the ways that bad software can be downloaded to your computer secretly without you knowing it is by some of the banner ads that are on the side of the web page that you're visiting. Very often, those banner ads can be attached to a virus. If you've got a good virus software program on your computer, that's a good start. But one of the things I do in my book is to sort of take you by the hand and give you some advice on other steps that you can take to protect yourself. Just to give you one example, always update your computer with the latest software, especially like your system software. If you have Microsoft products or Adobe Acrobat products, make sure those are always updated, because those are some of the common programs used to communicate viruses to your computer.
Thanks for the call here, Robert. Next to John. Go ahead, John. You're on the air.
Yes, afternoon. One preventative measure that my friend introduced to me was to put aluminum foil around a credit card and other credit cards in your wallet there, so that you can fill it up like a taco. And another thing I wanted to mention is that with websites, to change your password periodically, so
yes,
that you don't get hackers.
Well, that's a very good point. And don't make your password related to your family name or your birthday or, something like that, because that's easily something that people can find out. Just the other day, one of my websites got hacked. Somebody figured out my password and was able to make some postings recommending some kind of a mango diet. And, it was bizarre. I immediately changed my password, and the problem ended. But, pick a good password and change it often.
Thank you for that call. To another John in Ohio. You're on the air, John.
Hi, yes. I just wanted to comment and say that these are things that I've been watching for a long time. The keylogger, in most computers, you'd be surprised if you could go down through, you will see a program called keylogger, and it can, would be basically an executable program. It's amazing how quickly, and I'm not quite sure that all sites can basically be innocent, because I think that some places, just like that, whoever hacked your website, they can actually get into other websites and actually put keylogger in there too. My wife does a lot of Sunday school stuff, and she looks on a lot of Sunday school sites. I think that Jihad would look for places like that to put malicious software.
Yeah, there's a variety of different ways that those keylogger programs can be communicated, and that's one of the reasons why you do have to just be very cautious and take sort of a common sense approach as to what sites you visit. I know that in my case, I've tried to basically take an approach that, any website that I'm not familiar with personally, any website that has a variety of banner ads, I am automatically cautious. If you visit a website and they just got a whole stack of banner ads off to the right, your tendency is going to be to want to click on all those. I would urge caution about that. And the fact is that there's thousands and thousands of malicious malware products downloaded every single day just by those kinds of ads. But also beware when you see an email from apparently a friend that says they sent you a postcard or something like that. That's another way that viruses are commonly downloaded to your computer. And it would be nice to think that somebody sent me an electronic postcard, but that's one of the most common means of communicating viruses.
John, appreciate your call. And to a third John, go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, great program. I just wanted to mention a couple examples of these things actually taking place. Just recently, the Israelis were able to infiltrate the Iran nuclear program and disrupt shutting down some of the centrifuges for their purified uranium. And also on social networking sites, people probably don't know this, but they try and track, I think with spyware, what your surfing habits are, specific products that interest you. And these pop-up ads, a few friends and myself have discussed this, and they say, well, yeah, I'm into this type of thing, and I get pop-up ads targeting me. And then I started noticing it. Yeah. So I think we're being tracked. Whatever you're doing on the Internet is followed by malicious spyware and things of this nature. And also the ability to have your credit card put on a chip like the animal identification where it's injected into your cat or dog. I think they have this technology now for credit card use where you can pass through into certain businesses and you're just automatically charged on your credit card. It's embedded in your skin.
Thanks for raising that. Ron, what about I think it's called VeriChip?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's growing by the day. This is not technology that's just growing by the decade. It's growing by the day. And a lot of this research has been done at the university level, including the chip beneath the skin. And what they're experimenting with and what's now taking place is that all you got to do is wave your hand in front of the machine there at the checkout counter, and it automatically debits your account. And so that's just one more example of a loss of privacy. And I must also tell you that these chips can also be tied into GPS technology, so you can be tracked wherever you are. And, when you combine that with the fact that you're being watched by cameras with facial recognition software, that can be a little bit scary. I might mention to you, Jim, that you remember when the bombs went off in London? Mm-hmm. I was there. I was there, and they looked at all the security tapes to try to figure out, who done it. And I can tell you that I was on those security tapes. I had to be because I was on the very underground trains that previous week before they blew up.
My.
And that makes you a little bit nervous. What if you look like one of the bad guys?
Thank you, John, for your call. It's also interesting, and I don't recall what country. It seems to me it was in Great Britain that the technology, not only the cameras for facial recognition, but also for that of if voices become elevated, such as becoming obnoxious or approaching toward a fight, that the verbal audio alarms also go off in the surveillance centers to dispatch officers there to thwart anything that might be in the making.
Well, yeah, there's that. There's also the gait technology. In other words, people tend to walk with a certain pattern. People walk differently than other people. And so they begin tracking people and known terrorists and those kinds of things just based upon how people walk. And so, there's just all kinds of what they call biometric technologies that exist today. And you're being spied upon. You're being recorded. Privacy is vanishing before our eyes, and I know a lot of people may not be concerned about it, but I personally am very concerned about it. Seems like you can't go anywhere today without somebody electronically monitoring you.
Ron Rhodes is our guest, author of Cyber Meltdown, and let's go to our next call here from Northwest Florida. David, you're on the air.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to just make a comment. Your guest that you had there speaking on the thing with the president, I believe he said a visa with the technology and so forth of a cashless society. As far as that coming into the actual takeover by the Antichrist, I feel that there are 6 categories that need to take place, and they are right now, I believe, that would welcome in the Antichrist. One, I think all the nations will need to be broken economically, financially, militarily, politically, religiously, and morally, and I believe that we're very close to that coming.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you say that because, I've long held that prophecies have a tendency to cast their shadows before them. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like an earthquake where you have foreshocks before the main earthquake hits. Mm-hmm. So as we look at the tribulation period, we can actually feel some of the foreshocks of what's going to happen in the future tribulation period by looking at the world scene today. And whether you're talking political, moral, religious, or otherwise, I believe the stage is being set.
Thank you, David. To Anthony in Milwaukee, go ahead, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you for taking my call. I'd like to ask your guest, I know Windows is the most hacked system in the world. Can you tell me more? Can you tell me that is Linux and Mac harder to hack into than Windows is? Thank you, and I'll listen.
Okay.
If I understand the question, he's asking about the Macintosh, the Windows, and the Linux system?
Yes.
Well, I use all systems. I have all three systems in my office. Windows would seem to be the most vulnerable, followed by the Linux system. Now, a lot of people have felt invulnerable using the Macintosh because there have been so few viruses, but that's a thing of the past. More and more, there are Trojan horses and worms. These are kinds of viruses that are being designed for the Macintosh. And so today, it's important that you also have an antivirus software package on your Mac. It used to be you could skip that on the Mac, but no longer.
To Wade, you're our next caller. Go ahead. You're on the air with Ron Rhodes.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Ron.
Hello.
My question, well, first off, is this the same Ron Rhodes that has written Witnessing to Mormons, Witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses, Witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, all the reasoning from the Scripture books, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, guilty as accused.
Fantastic. No, I've read a lot of those. There's a lot of great material. I got a question. I got a buddy who's been a software engineer for the better part of 20 years. And now that Windows 8 is in beta stage, he was mentioning that they're quite possibly deep in the code being implemented a internet shutoff switch built into the code of Windows 8. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard about that in particular. I do know that our own government has devised a plan to shut down the entire Internet in the event of a massive cyber attack, and that there are actually keys given to a group of people who must all come together and use these keys simultaneously to restart the Internet. Now, that would be in the event of a massive cyber attack in such a scenario where there was no other option. And that would be basically similar to restarting a computer, only it would be a global type of a computer system that would be restarted. I'm really not familiar with much about the new Windows system, so I'll have to look more into that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And once again, thanks for taking my call in the VCY ministry. Just fantastic job, Jim, and appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you, Wade. Appreciate your call. We are just seconds away from a break. Ron Rhodes is our guest here today on Crosstalk regarding his book, Cyber Meltdown, Bible Prophecy, and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism. We'll be back in just 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Today we look at number 13 on our list of 20 characteristics of false teachers. Number 13, false teachers embrace moralizing. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 20 through 22 speaks to this. For if after they've escaped the pollutions of the world, meaning moralizing, they've cleaned up their life in some man-centered way, not through faith and repentance in Christ, but they've cleaned up their life through a self-help type program, man-centered works, then what happens? They return right to their sin, just as a sow having washed to her wallowing in the mire. In other words, these false teachers may be about trying to proclaim good works and good things, but they themselves are lost. They've cleaned up their life through man-centered efforts, not through faith and repentance in Christ. And so the end result for these false teachers is, after they're moralizing, they return to their sin. I'm Brandon House.
Well, we're talking with Ron Rhodes today. He is the president of Reasoning from the Scripture Ministries, and he's authored this book, Cyber Meltdown. And again, we are making this available through Crosstalk, subtitle Bible Prophecy and the Imminent Threat of Cyber Terrorism. It's available by going to vcyamerica.org. We're making it available for donation of $17 or more to Crosstalk, or you can request it by calling our switchboard at 1-800-729-9829. Let's go to McAllen, Texas. And Sheila, thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. One thing I wanted to hit that nobody has ever made any comment on is the fact that if your computer ever crashes or anything, and you have to get rid of it, or you want to throw it away or anything, remember to please take your hard drive out.
That's absolutely critical. That's a very, very good point. The fact is that most people store sensitive information on their computer hard drives, including your, Social Security number and all your back taxes and, maybe your credit card numbers in a database and all that sort of thing. And so people could very easily commit identity theft by the hard drive that is still inside the computer.
Wow. Thanks for bringing that up here today. Our next caller is Michael. Michael, go ahead. In Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Hi, I was just...
Michael, could I have you turn your radio off in the background, please?
Oh, I got a TV on in the background, sorry.
Okay.
I recently started listening to your program, and I'm an atheist, and I'm just wondering what it's all about.
Well, what it's all about in terms of, in terms of Christianity is that there is a living God who desires to have a living relationship with you. And what the living God has done is that he has communicated to us what you might call intel in advance. I'm talking about biblical prophecy. God has told us in advance what the world will look like in the end times. And that's what we've been talking about today, biblical prophecy as related to cyber terrorism. And there's a lot of good information. In fact, I'd be delighted to send you a free book. It's a book that I wrote actually on atheism. And perhaps you could leave your name and address with somebody at the station there, and I'll get that in the mail to you. Would you read it?
Probably not.
Are you sure?
It just doesn't really interest me. I've been a Christian for a number of years, and then I just rejected it all because it didn't make sense to me.
Well, a lot of people have said that same thing, which is why I tried to, in my book, to address some of the most common...
The moral aspect of Christianity just doesn't make any sense if you think about it.
Can you be specific?
Just sit down and think about the whole of Christianity. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think it does make sense, but let me just give you this small piece of advice. Don't judge Christianity based upon, what you may have seen in some, Christians' lives. There may be some Christians that you've seen on TV that you don't like the way that they lived. Or it could be that you got burned out on a church that you used to attend, or somebody did something. I would encourage you to consider what Jesus himself said in the Gospels. Jesus himself is all about Christianity. Christianity is not a code of ethics. It's about a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about.
Hello, Michael.
How can you have a personal relationship with someone you can't see? That's like having a personal relationship with an imaginary friend. You can't prove otherwise.
Well, I think that there's a big difference between an imaginary friend and Jesus Christ. It all begins with the reality that God is a God who reveals himself. God didn't just create us and then just leave us to ourselves to grope around in the dark, but rather God has always taken the initiative to reveal himself. And one of the ways that he reveals himself is through his holy word, the Bible. And one of the things that's unique about the Bible is that there's a lot of prophecy in it. You see, God wanted people to be able to tell that it was his word as opposed to just the words of human beings. And so, for example, in regard to the first coming of Christ, there was over 100 prophecies that were made hundreds and even thousands of years before Christ came, and they were all fulfilled absolutely literally. And in the same way, the Bible has given us many prophecies about the second coming, and those will be fulfilled just as literally. So I would just advise you, if you're going to make a decision about Christianity, don't you want to make an informed decision?
Yeah, to have the facts. Michael, I'm going to place you on hold, and if you would, leave your name and address, and we will pass it on to Ron, and he'll send you a copy of the book that he referred to you about as well. So please hold the line there, and we'll take that call. And we're going to ask our listeners to be praying for Michael as well as he wrestles with this aspect. Let's see. Let's go next to Audrey in Racine. You're on the air, Audrey.
Yes. My husband and I are in our middle 70s, and we don't own a computer, and we never have. How would this affect us?
Well, it could affect you even if you don't own a computer, because I assume you probably use credit cards. I assume that you go out in public, and do you have a smartphone like a...
No, we don't have a cell phone at all.
Okay, you don't have a cell phone. Well, you're probably a lot safer than a lot of people. You know, some people have said that the only safe computer is one that is turned off and locked in the closet. So you're real safe in that regard. But even if you use credit cards and so forth, there are people spying on you in terms of making a record of the kinds of things you like to buy. That information is available to other companies who want to market their materials to you. And so even in that limited sense, you're being watched. And also if you walk around downtown, you're being photographed at least 300 times a day if you live around a major city in the United States.
Further, if there are businesses, grocery stores, or whatever, if a cyber attack is launched on the U.S., every U.S. citizen will be impacted.
Well, that's right. I mean, electricity will go out. Did you know that our own government has discovered software code that's been pre-positioned in our electrical grid all across the nation, waiting for some foreign government to flip a switch and turn off the electrical system in the United States? It's already there. Our government has discovered it. And so, you know, those kinds of things affect all people no matter where they live.
Thank you for your call. We're out of time. Ron Rhodes has been our guest today on Crosstalk. Ron, for those who'd like to be in contact with your ministry, how can they do so?
Well, they can go to our website at ronrhodes.org, RONRHODES.org, and you can sign up for the free newsletter there.
Okay, that's ronrhodes.org. Ron is author of many, many books, some 60s titles, and this one we're talking about today, Cyber Meltdown. Ron, thanks for being available to us today on Crosstalk.
My pleasure, thanks.
And folks, to obtain a copy of the book, you can visit vcyamerica.org or contact our switchboard here, 1-800-729-9829. We're making it available for donation of $17 or more to Crosstalk. A lot of information here in a short period of time, but there's much more to learn. Tell another about Crosstalk and share with them the information you've learned.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.